This video I'll be showing you how to cut and sew a waistcoat that has a drop back or a show me your back. So this waistcoat is mainly for ladies. So quickly let's get started. For this project, we are going to be drafting on our pattern paper, but trust me, it is very simple. So first thing I did, I'm going to come down from my pattern paper by 6 inches. This is a constant. Now, all of my measurements is going to be going after this my 6 inches line. Kindly note that if this will confuse you, you can go ahead to fold in your 6 inches line before you proceed. Remember, all my measurements start after my 6 inches line. From that line, I'll go ahead to mark my bust point measurement. So next, I'll go ahead to mark my waist measurement. Now, for your waist measurement, when you are marking this line, you are going to be marking this out with a broken line. This is because we will not be using our actual waist measurement for this project. You are going to come down 2 inches from your broken line, and that will be your actual waist measurement for this jacket. So this would be your actual waist measurement. Next, I'm going to come down from that line by 8 inches. This 8 inches is your hip line measurement and it works for everybody. So next, I'll go ahead to mark out my basic neckline of 3 inches wide and 3 inches deep, and I'm going to connect it with my curve rule like so. So I'll go ahead to measure my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and I'm going to come down at that point by 1 inches, and I'll connect this with a slanted line to my neck width like so. So next, I'm going to go up my bust point line by 1.5 inches. It works for everybody. I'll just make a broken line to extend it a bit like so, and I'm going to measure and mark out my shoulder measurement at this point and connect it to get a straight line to the shoulder measurement at the top. Next, I'm going to extend this like so. Now, to know where your armhole curve should stop, I'll mark out my bust measurement at my armhole point. I'll mark it out there, and I'll go ahead to make my armhole curve. Okay. Next, I'll mark out on my bold line, not my broken line. I'll mark out my waist measurement divided by 4. I'm going to connect this to my armhole point where I have already marked out my bust measurement. Next, I'm going to go to my hip line and mark out my hip measurement divided by 4, and I'll connect to my waist point. Next, I'll mark my bust span measurement divided by 4, and I'm going to connect this from my bust point to my hip line. Next, I'm going to go to the bust point line. I'm going to measure 1 inch down and another 1 inch down, giving me a total of 2 inches. I'm going to connect this like this to the bust point. Mark half inch on the both side of your bust span line. You mark it on your waistline and on your hip line, and you go ahead to connect this to your bust point with like a pencil like this. Now the total of your dart intake will be 1 inch, and you're going to replace this on your waistline and on your hip line, and you're going to connect this with a broken line as you see me do to the bust point and to the hip line like so. So next, I'm going to go ahead to get the midpoint of my armhole, and I'm going to connect with a slanted line like so. I'm going to come down from this point by ½ inch. This is to avoid any gapping at your armhole point. You're going to connect like you see me do like this. Next, you ensure that you blend the bust curve so that it is not pointed at that point. I'll go to the shoulder and I'm going to mark 2 inches outward after the neckline. I'm going to go ahead to close this your armhole dart. You pinch out one line first and you make it meet the other line. That is how you close it dart. You take your pin or a masking tape and you hold this point down like this. Make sure you hold this down before you proceed. Next, you are going to either use your curve rule or your free hand to make this curve. If you are using your free hand, make sure you use a broken line first, and you are connecting this to your armhole depth like so. Okay, you are connecting this to the 2 inches you marked on your shoulder. So this is me using my my curve rule to make it bold. Make sure your dart is closed so that your line aligns perfectly. There's no measurement guide for this curve, but what I have here at the end of the curve is 4.75. Now make sure your dart is closed here. This will make sure that your pieces align when you are joining your princess curve. You can go ahead to remove the pin now. On the bold waistline, you are going to come down by 6 inches, okay? You come down by 6 inches and you connect this with a straight line. We have no use for this down part anymore. You are going to connect this, but before you connect this, let me explain something. This dart is no more useful. So when you are making your slanted line, you should stop at the dart leg, not into the dart. You stop at the dart leg as you can see me do like this. Do not include your dart. and you connect to your broken waistline. For my neck depth, I'm going to do 2 inches above my bust point, but you can do as you desire. Remember, this part is no more included. I'm going to start up the neckline first and leave it at that. I'm going to extend my 3 by 3 neckline upward, and I'm going to be extending by 4 inches length. You can extend more than that, but just remember what you use for your extension. I'm going to make the height of it extended like this. Next, I'm going to go half inch behind my 3 by 3 neckline, and I'm going to connect this with a broken line. This is to help your neckline relax very well. So I'll still extend my line like this, and I'm going to be measuring what I used at the shoulder at this point, of which I used 2 inches. I'll measure it there, and because of my slant here, I'm going to be taking out what I have exactly at this point, mark it there so I can get the exact slant, and I'm going to connect with a slanted line like this, and I'm going to be connecting this to this point like so. Okay, now if you do this correctly, your back wrap should be able to relax very well. Now to close the bust dart, first you are going to open up your princess dart up to the bust point. You cut and stop at your bust point. Before you close your dart, you are going to measure from your armhole to your broken waistline. You're going to be using this measurement to cut out the back part, so just write it one place. Take note, you are measuring from your armhole to your broken waistline, not the bowed waistline. So next, you close your bust dart, you pinch up one line, and you're going to place it on the other line. You're going to hold this up with your pin or a masking tape. You'd notice that the line at the side doesn't align anymore. So you take your straight rule and you're going to blend this to the waistline, to blend it up like so. After closing your bust dart, you'd notice that the armhole dart have increased. This way we have transferred the bust dart to the armhole dart. I'll go ahead to cut out that half inch we came down by on the armhole point. Then I'm going to be cutting this out like this, following my new neckline curve, and do well to follow your broken line when you are cutting out the neck slant. Lest I forget, we have not done our neckline. So I'll just place my ruler and I'm going to give this a V slant to my neck depth, which I marked some time ago. So you blend this point very well so that it's not sharp. Next, I'll go ahead to cut this out, following my neck slant down to my neck depth. Then I'll go ahead to cut this out as shown. So this is what we have for the front pieces. Now I'm going to be using this figure I got from measuring from the armhole point to my broken waistline. This is the figure we are going to be using to draft out the back part. For the back part, I'll first of all draw my startup point, and I'm going to indicate this side as the up. Now from this up line, I'll go ahead to measure the 7.5 measurement I got. Kindly note that this 7.5 is not a constant. It depends on your own body measurement. So I'll draw out my line, and that will be the down part. Okay, do well to indicate the center as the back center. Make your indications accordingly, else you would forget it. Now on the up part, you are going to mark out your bust measurement, and on the down part you mark out your waist measurement, and you connect this together with a slanted line and cut this out, and this would be for your back part. Now for the sewing tutorial, I'm going to link it to this video. Thank you.